Do you want to live more sustainably but aren't sure where to start or how it fits in with your everyday living? The Renewy Living podcast simplifies sustainability so you can feel confident to take small, meaningful actions that fit into your lifestyle. Based on the lands of the Awabakal and Worimi people in Newcastle, Australia, you'll learn how to live lighter on our planet through practical ideas, stories from like-minded people, and examples of businesses doing great things. With an open heart and mind, join me, Marty Lee, as we explore how to consume less, build stronger community connections, and thrive in your neighbourhood, wherever you call home. Welcome to the Renewy Living podcast. Hello, my name's Marty Lee, and welcome to the Renewy Living podcast. In rural and regional towns across Australia, it's easier than ever to spend money with big corporations, especially when gift cards are sold in the local post office or the supermarket. But that convenience comes at a cost because it means local businesses miss out on the support they need to keep their community thriving. In this episode, I'm chatting with Ash Watt, co-founder of Why Leave Town, a business that started when Ash moved back to his hometown of Narrabri, New South Wales. Seeing how much money was leaving the local economy, Ash came up with a simple idea: a community gift card program designed to help keep spending local and the money circulating in the region. This conversation is about what shopping locally really means in a modern digital world and why small businesses remain the backbone of strong, connected and sustainable communities. G'day, Ash.
Hi, Marty. How are you?
I'm so fabulous. It's lovely to have you on. We met at the Social Impact in the Regions conference in Grafton this year. And it was great to connect with you and hear about what your business actually does to support local.
Yeah, no, it was a great couple of days, and it's interesting. I've found the number of conversations I've had post that actual conference was possibly more than I had actually during the conference. To be honest, it's always great to sort of be in the same room of like-minded people who are not only just looking at economic prosperity, but also just from the social side of things and that's what Whiteley Town. It's a big part of what we're about. We're obviously going to be chatting about all that today, but we're always interested in how can we actually have better communities. So it was great to catch up there and great to catch up with all those other people as well.
What does the word local mean to you?
Yeah, look, for me, growing up in regional Australia, in Narrabri, I've now sort of moved up the road to Tamworth. That's where I'm based. So for me, I think local and community, those words go very close, go hand in hand when I think about local. So it's not necessarily about geography. It's about connections you have within a particular community and how you then sort of work together to ideally to prosper. And so, again, growing up in a regional location and did all my schooling there and family still there as well. For me, local is definitely about those sort of stories that you remember and the stories that you start to build through those relationships that you have in a local area. And then that obviously, I guess, then moves into the business side of things as well, as to then how do we then operate from a small business and large business point of view in our local community.
One of your key life experiences is that, as you said, you've grown up in regional Australia. You actually moved to the Big Smoke in Sydney for quite a number of years, not just a couple of years. And then you've made the choice to go back to regional Australia. What kind of differences did you see about what local means in Sydney compared to like a capital city compared to regional Australia?
It's chalk and cheese for a lot of it. And there's still some great communities in metro areas as well. And particularly, I lived in Sydney for about 7 years, and there's some parts there you go and you get a sense of local there. But for a lot of times, we would be living in apartment blocks, and you've got a neighbour that you're actually sharing a wall with. You'd hardly say hello to. Most people put their head down and sort of keep to themselves most of the time. But we're in regional Australia. I remember bringing some of my Sydney friends back to Narrabri, and you walk the street and it takes you a sort of good hour to walk from 2 or 3 blocks, because everyone you go past you're saying hello to. And for people from the city, that's a little bit hard to understand that. How can you know? You must be really popular. No, not at all. This is just how small communities work. And then that's how that real sort of local feel goes. I was lucky enough then to move from Sydney to Adelaide for a year. And I think Adelaide's at least one big city that does it well in terms of that. As I always say, it's like a small country town with 1 million people in it. But it's definitely a sort of a shift. So that at least helped me get back into small town country living as well.
I grew up in Sydney, not in Sydney City, but the suburbs of Sydney, and then moved up to Newcastle in 2000. And now that I've been here for quite some time, there is this running joke that in Newcastle, everyone is like 2 degrees of separation, not 6, but 2. And I wonder if that's kind of the same thing when you go to regional Australia.
Yeah, I think 2 is even possibly pushing it a lot of the times. And I thought from moving from Narrabri to Tamworth that it would sort of stretch out, but I found it's still the same. Everyone's connected. Everyone's cousins with someone else who's married to someone else who went to school with the same person. So yeah, it's very closely connected. And again, you so even when you're in the city, you meet someone from the country, and if you know they're sort of roughly in the local area, you know you're going to be connected somehow. It's one of the good things, one of the bad things sometimes living in small sort of regional areas. But I think the good often outweighs the bad.
So tell us about the good in terms of those social community connections. What is the benefit of being connected in that 2 degrees of separation?
There's and look, from a business point of view, and when we're operating as small businesses, I think it's always said the low hanging fruit is the B2B space.
Oh, so that's business to business.
Yes, that's right. And so it's knowing that the people you're supporting are they're in the same boat as you are. You're in as well as a small business. If you're a small business operator, or even if you're working in a small business, actually knowing those other businesses that they're in your community, and knowing the personal stories behind those businesses as well is a huge thing in terms of it's not just not just a number or a transaction. It's actually having a link to that wider community, and understanding that we all need to be helping each other out. And that's where I guess from our point of view, the whole shop local path we went down was because of that, because we saw that there was a lot of businesses in our community that needed support. And we know the stories behind these businesses. We went to school with these same people. We've shopped there as kids and so forth. And so having that really strong connection, I think, is a really good way to actually bring businesses together.
Like, as I said in the introduction, small businesses are the backbone of a thriving community. And when you live in a community, like from a regional community, you do see how spending your money in a local business does make a big impact to that person, because it's often like 1 or 2 or a small conglomerate of people who own that business, with primarily the profits going back into that person, not like some big multinational shareholder scheme.
Yeah, that's right. And look, we often sort of quote that $100 spent locally has a $180 impact. That's when we're talking about the multiplier effect. So when you shop locally, that business owner who is locally based, well, then they're a shopper as well. So they're going to invest partly for their business. They might be buying in goods or paying wages or whatever it is that they're doing for their business. Plus, then they go and spend money themselves as a local shopper. And so that money circulates around several times. Now, any money spent locally is good. I'll come back to that. But that percentage can shift depending on the type of business you're shopping in. So if it's a locally owned and operated business that sources all of its products or all its inputs into its business locally, then obviously that percentage is much higher. If it's a locally owned franchise, obviously there's some money that leaks out of the local economy because of that, but there's still a percentage that stays inside. Even for the multinationals that are based locally, there's obviously still a percentage that stays local. So any money spent locally is good from that point of view, because it's better than 100% of money spent outside of the economy means 100% of the money is actually outside of your actual local community. So any money spent locally is good, but the more you can actually support those businesses that are locally owned, locally operated, employ lots of locals, that sees a bigger impact to the local community. Even sometimes, you're either shopping or supporting people who might seem to be your local competitors is a good thing. Because if people are spending money at your local competitors, again, that multiplier effect's going to mean that money's going to come back into your pocket at some point or into pockets of your shoppers. So, yeah, the more you can actually support anyone who's local, the better.
Yeah, I mean, that word of competitors is interesting, isn't it? Because it could be a competitor, but then you end up to be more of a collaborator and working together to make your town thrive.
Oh, definitely. And I think that's how you need to view it. The world is so connected now. So to think that the shop across the other side of the street is who your direct competition is in most part, is not right. If you're a coffee shop, of course, that possibly is more the case. But for most businesses, the competition is worldwide. And so if you can actually have a good working relationship with those local businesses who you may or may not compete with, then all of a sudden, if you've got there's some sort of wider issue that's going on, you've got someone, as you said, you can collaborate with. If it is, say, for example, a coffee shop, either so creating the Sunday morning coffee shop culture of everyone getting out and exercising, and you've got 3 or 4 places to choose from, that's a good thing to have in a local community. And that's when the more and more you can work with other local businesses, the better.
So let's delve into how Why Leave Town actually benefits local communities.
Yeah, so I guess it go back a few sort of steps in terms of, I guess, where we all started. So Why Leave Town, actually, when we first started, we were all about event management. The whole idea is why leave town to actually go to a wine festival? We'll bring it to our local community. Myself and my business partner had the idea of, okay, let's try and bring a bunch of different events to our community of Narrabri. We did that for a couple of years, had a couple of really great events that certainly tick that box. But we did see that events, although great, they sort of fluctuate in terms of the impact. So you've got a big event, it's great, everyone gets the benefit, then you don't do anything for 6 months, and obviously no one gets the benefit from that. And so we were working with a lot of local businesses during that process. And just through conversations we had with them, they're saying they need something a little bit more regular. And from that, we actually started our local gift card program. So we basically got to the point where we got rid of all the event management stuff and we just focused on the gift cards, which mainly came through. We noticed that at our local post office, there was all these gift cards you could purchase. Actually, none of them you could actually spend in our local community. So there's all the big chain retailers was there. And that's where the idea came from, that we thought, why don't we do the same thing, but let's base it around the local businesses. And that sort of was able to provide those businesses potentially with something which they could benefit from all year round. And that's when we started our first gift card program in Narrabri. I think we had 30 businesses that started it. We possibly had about, I think that first year was about $1,500 or something. Went through the program. It was a handful of $50 cards. It was there as the alternative to Christmas gifts rather than buying the big chain stores. Fast forward 15 years later, we've just gone past like 30 million in terms of loaded cards, and we have 6,000 businesses across 80 different programs around Australia. So it's obviously gone a long way during that time.
Congratulations. That shows it's already having a massive impact in regional community. You just focus on regional, or do you do a little bit more?
Look, I guess our heart lies in regional Australia, but we do have we're about communities, and sort of going back to as we said at the start. Sometimes in metro areas, that doesn't sort of necessarily resonate that well in terms of you might live over here, you work over here, you play sport over here. It's hard to have that community connection, but we do have some metro locations, some places. Lane Cove, for example, is a good example in Sydney, where it's certainly community based, and it's there is a local feel to that part of Sydney. And we've got places in WA, in Perth and in Victoria as well. But yeah, look, we prefer, I don't say we prefer to work in regional Australia, but that's where our passion really lies, and where I think we see the greatest impact. But we've got a pretty wide range of different programs operating at the moment.
When I met you at the Social Impact in the Regions in Grafton, one of the things that we all received as participants was a Why Leave Town card. And what that meant as a conference is that every participant spent their money at, well, in this instance, it was in South Grafton. And we could choose which cafe that we wanted to spend our money with, or which shop. If we didn't want the cafe, we could go to a different shop within that South Grafton community. And it just felt so magical and so empowering to that local community who were so chuffed that all these people came to support their business.
Yeah, that was a really cool moment to be a part of. And I think everyone at the conference shared the same thoughts on that. But just to, I guess, to paint the picture a bit further, it wasn't just giving everyone a gift card to go spend a local shop. We basically marched on South Grafton in the literal sense that we had a four-piece band sort of playing guitars and singing. We all lined up behind them in a sort of rugged way and sort of walked into the mainstream with that sort of music playing. And so that the whole community could hear us coming. So 200 odd delegates with their Wiley Town card ready to spend in the local cafes. And then we just basically dispersed into those local shops. And one was to obviously have lunch, but we also had a whole heap of other retail stores involved as well. So you could go grab your lunch and then spend your change in some of the local businesses. It was a really effective way to see how you can have a big impact in a local community in a very short space of time. And I guess from the conference, it was just to tick two boxes. One, to obviously feed us because it was lunchtime, but also just to show how we can all then go back to our own communities and how can we try and generate the same sort of feeling to, as a community, we come together and we support those businesses in our local area.
Yeah. So going back to Grafton, like as you were saying before, that you wanted to provide more than just a one-off event option. So now in Grafton, there's the cards that are for year-round use for locals and for tourists to the area.
Yeah, that's right. So through Ready Communities with the conference and then working with the Jacaranda Festival team as well, we've got the cards there. So people can now use those cards or purchase them for Christmas gifts, for birthday gifts, thank you gifts, all those sort of things as well. All the stock standard ways you would use a gift card. And that's how we operate across all our communities. It's about firstly giving people that alternative to the bigger chain stores. So there's lots of times you need to purchase a gift. And we sort of think, well, if you're going to do that, why not use this as an opportunity to support local businesses and to support the local community? And that's where I guess we started. And one of the big things we push, and as we're recording this, it's sort of the start of November and we're already into this, the run into Christmas from a gift card point of view. It sort of starts earlier every year. My kids are already pushing me to put up our Christmas tree. I said, no, December 1st is when you do it. But from a gift card point of view, we've been sort of sending out cards since about September for Christmas orders. And with a lot of organisations getting ready early. So it's certainly our biggest time of year. But in the last 15 years, we've really seen a big shift in terms of how we operate. And it's not just about Christmas. It's not just about birthdays. It's about looking for other opportunities where how can we inject more money into local economies. One of the best examples I have of that is going back 7 or 8 years ago in the drought that was across Australia. And we had a lot of donations flowing into regional Australia where they were drought affected. Rather than just giving a farmer, for example, a $100 cash donation or relief package, if to actually use our cards meant that the farmer would get the relief and also that they would then use that money in local businesses. So just double that impact. And I guess for us, that was a huge turning point in terms of how we operate as a business, because we thought, like, this is more than just gifting, which is still great to support local business, but this can have such a bigger impact in communities when they're really struggling. And then leading that into post-COVID, and we've had programs start up after they've been devastated by floods or bushfires. But not even start, but just using our infrastructure there to help get those communities back on their feet. And for us, that it helps you sleep better at night when you're knowing you're doing more than just, rather than a big chain gift card, they're using one of ours, which is great, but now it's actually having a much bigger impact. And I think it's really great to be part of that.
What kind of stories can you share that show that difference between before having your card to support local to now having your card quite embedded in the community?
There's a lot in terms of where we've had a lot of places where they start to use the card more like a local currency. And it's ways where people before would sort of think, well, and particularly where we've got some, in some locations where almost there's a large portion of the businesses are involved. So it means that we've got organisations such as like even the local schools using as prizes or so forth. And where that sort of, and we have a lot of real estate agents as well who sort of give the cards out. And so when it's that local currency and when everyone can be involved that way, it sort of opens the door to how many ways the the cards can be used, which then obviously flows more and more money into those economies, and then kicks in that social impact, the multiplier effect. And then we see a much bigger impact in those communities. And look, in terms of individual examples, it's hard to sort of pinpoint just the one or two, because it's more about just where we've seen the cards being embedded as just this is what they use all the time. And we were then just seeing the numbers sort of clicking over in terms of where that's spent, and not just even the total value of the money spent, but also just seeing that spread across a number of different businesses that I wouldn't go as far as saying without our support wouldn't survive, but it's one extra piece of the puzzle that's been able to keep their doors open.
There's a huge economic impact on having your gift cards to spend locally. And then how does that impact upon the social fabric of the community? Does the community sort of talk about it with other members of the community? Is it a word of mouth kind of thing to say, yeah, this is fantastic? And does it make them stronger?
Yeah, look, there's a couple aspects of that. First of all, I think when we look at how we measure, I guess, performance from Wellington Town point of view, we look at the obviously the value of the cards being loaded is one thing, but I also always like to look at how many different transactions we've had. Is just as important, I think, because every time there's a transaction with one of our gift cards, it actually opens the opportunity for a shop local conversation. And that conversation is not just one person, obviously, it's a conversation. It might be the person shopping plus the shop owner having that conversation. And the shop might be filled with 3 or 4 other people as well. So that the impact of that is quite large. So we obviously want to see that financial benefit to flowing in. But I think the more we see the more transactions, and whenever we're talking anything to do with shop local, it's all about having a really long-term approach, and you need to have lots of things at play as well to really sort of create an effective shop local culture. So that's one thing we certainly look at, and we've seen in communities where we've had more success, it's been where the transactions have been up quite high, and certainly it then does help the word of mouth about our particular program. But I think more importantly, it starts the word of mouth about shop local and why it's important to shop local. And we've also seen that shift quite a bit over the last 15 years, where pre-COVID, everyone was sort of quite happy and everyone was doing their own thing. And it was a little bit difficult to even sort of push a shop local product from that point of view, because people were happy to jump online. Post-COVID, that certainly changed. People saw the importance of we need to make sure that we are supporting those in our community, because when things get really tough, and as tough as it was in COVID, to the point where we're completely shut down and locked down, and you need to be relying on those businesses that are really close to you. I do feel, I get the sense that we're slipping back to that pre-COVID space at the moment, and that might be just my opinion, but I think we need to sort of continually remind shoppers and businesses that it's really important that we understand that. So that's the first part. From the other side of things, from a social aspect, and this is where I say about any money spent locally is good. It's about not only about spending money, it's about getting people out of their houses into main streets, chatting to each other. For example, if the local newspaper shop news agent closes down, that might be someone's only interaction with people on a daily basis to grab their paper. All of a sudden, if that's just delivered and it's thrown on their front porch, then there goes that interaction. And then that has a huge flow-on effect throughout the whole community in terms of how people interact daily. Then you can get that money that flows into that business, then supports the local football club, who then is able to have the right facilities to bring in coaches who can bring young kids through and teach them how to not only play sport, but how to be responsible adults, and all that sort of that flow effect as well. So we take that pretty seriously when we're thinking about our cards and saying, well, any sort of money that's flowing back into town is going to have a much bigger impact than just the economic impact.
I think you've summed it up really nicely about that social impact, about it's encouraging people to get out and about in the main street or the main area of town. And that's extremely important, because local is all about people and community, which is what we've talked about earlier. And I think I also concur with you about what's happened since COVID. Like, I can see online how much during COVID, peak COVID times, that, there was a lot of support local. You've got to, because this is the reason why, and it's how important, and very much from a logistics point of view. But I do feel like it's now 5 years later, and I do feel like it's been slipped by, and people are definitely going back into their pre-COVID habits. But hopefully, with you explaining the benefits of why you need to keep on shopping locally, it would encourage people to shop locally.
One of the reasons why we exist, I guess, as a business is to try and push that as much as possible. And we deal with a lot of councils and a lot of chambers of commerce as well. And pretty much most of them would have some sort of shop local aspect to them in terms of if it's a campaign they run yearly or a Christmas promotion, whatever it is. The big thing that I try and, I guess, push as much as possible is that you can't just say everyone shop local.
No, you've got to back it up.
Exactly. It's not strong enough just to tell people to shop local. I think that is a good part of it. I think any good sort of overall activity that you're doing needs a sort of campaign that is pushing that message, but it's also getting a little bit deeper under that and as to the whys and understanding or learning more about the stories behind local businesses and who those people are, who they are in the community. And when you support them, this is the flow and effect that it has to the wider community. It's also about, and one of the things I've always loved about our gift cards, and before I say, I would say that our gift cards aren't the solution to shop local, it's part of the solution. And I always say you need to have lots of things going on. But one thing I do like about our product and why I think it's been so successful is that it's quite a tangible thing. In addition to pushing that message of shop local, if you can have something that when you give someone one of our cards, they've got no other choice but actually to shop local, then I think that certainly helps in that. And so I think it's a really good complement to any sort of shop local campaign that way, in addition to running your Christmas shopper promotions, which a lot of communities do, and all the other loyalty programs and campaigns and however you want to plaster the street with marketing material. I think it all helps. But yeah, having something which is tangible. And I always even say that it's an easy one, even if you're someone who doesn't like shopping locally. I'm using it very crudely here, but if you're somebody who doesn't like shopping locally yourself, if you're giving it as a present, you're still supporting the local community. Like here's a really, really simple way for you to support local businesses without even you changing too much of how you shop yourself. So that's a very crude way of saying it, but it's a very basic and it's a very tangible way that people can go, yes, we're going to support our local community. Ideally, though, you should be doing the same thing yourself.
Yeah, but I think it also shows that you can do it in many different ways, and you can do it what matters most to you, or maybe it's the first step into supporting locals. So you may not do it yourself, but you would like other people to do it, and then slowly perhaps you do it.
Oh, 100%. And to link back to what I was saying before in the business spaces, even as business owners and operators, I think it's really good to lead from the front with that. And so if you're a business and you have half a dozen staff, then I think if you're buying them Christmas gifts, for example, then buying them something, it might not be our local gift cards, it might be just buying some local produce or some other local wares and tears and whatever it is that you want to give them, but it's supporting other local businesses when you're rewarding your staff or whatever else you're doing is a really good way to show the community that you're locally minded, and that will flow back into you as well.
Living sustainably is so diverse. What you were saying before, it's like only one little part of the solution, because that's what needs to happen with living sustainably. But living sustainably in this instance about supporting local is it's giving that long-term sustainability to businesses and their economic growth and the social growth to maintain and retain healthy communities.
100% agree.
You've got a book on your website, and you've outlined 14 themes of how towns can create a shop local culture. What do you think are the three most impactful ways people can do this?
Yeah, sure. Just so with the book, I actually came because my background's actually in market research. Before I did start doing Wiley Town full time, I was a market researcher. So when I started doing Wiley Town full time, the first thing I did was do a whole bit of research as well. And I actually chatted to lots of businesses, councils, chambers, people working in regional development Australia, lots of different people. And from that, just got a whole heap of different examples of what people are doing in different communities all across Australia to try and encourage people to shop local. That's where the themes from the book came from. And this is all pre-COVID as well. So there's a whole heap of other themes I reckon I can throw in there now as well. But I think if I was to put just the three most important, and I'm going to start with the first chapter because I think it is most important, is just make it easy. You can understand it from, if you're a shopper yourself, you want things to be as simple as possible. You don't want to put too many barriers in front of people shopping. And that making it easy could look different for all sorts of different businesses. Some of that might be having an online presence. Some of it might be ensure that you've got parking out front of your shop. It could be just in terms of home delivery. It could be all sorts of different things. But I think whatever sort of initiatives you're using to encourage people to shop local, you just got to make it as simple as possible, because as soon as there's a barrier, and we can all relate to this, as soon as there's a barrier, and there's an easier alternative, you got to go for that easier alternative. It's just human nature that. So that's possibly the first one. The next one is possibly then creating an experience. And I did touch on this a little bit before, is that whenever it's a transaction, then you don't have that same connection. A transaction you can do anywhere. And then when we're talking about ordering something from another town or from overseas or wherever it is just a transaction. Ideally when you're dealing with locals, it's more than a transaction. You're actually getting an experience by walking into the actual the shop, or the conversations you have. It might be the after sales service you get, everything you can add. And it might even just be the look and feel of the shop and everything you get, the warm and fuzzy feeling you get when you go into a particular place. I think all of that means it's more than a transaction, which means you don't have to necessarily compete on price in the same way. You can pay a premium because it's sometimes, often in regional Australia, it's harder to compete with prices that you'll find online or in the city. But if you offer so much more, then you've moved away from that transaction experience. And the last one is very closely related, just the customer service. And I think that is a big part of the experience. And I think often I find that most of the time we almost expect bad customer service, which makes it really easy to have happy customers. Because if you can just offer sometimes a simple smile, then that's enough to actually for people to think, I really love going to this shop. I really love shopping with these people. I love supporting these people because I'm not just a number to them. I am actually an important part of their business.
I feel this as a customer when I go into even my local shops. It's much easier to not patronize, but patronize. I don't know. It's same spelling, different pronunciation, but return to that shop knowing that I have had an ace experience. And as you said, that smile, that courteous look, that what else can I do for you, but in a non-financial way and non out of there. Like, it just makes such a big difference to that compared to, as you said, a transaction of I've gone in, bought this thing and out again.
Oh, definitely. Look, I've got coffee shops that I prefer to go to, which possibly don't have the best coffee in town, but the experience you get when you go there adds more to the overall experience of what you get. It's not just the product, it's not just the price. You need to put it all together to say, well, what do I actually get when I actually go somewhere? And I think that's a huge advantage for local businesses if they really want to take hold of it and to say, well, okay, yes, you can buy this online, or you can, next time you're in the city, you can buy that as well. But when you shop with me, you get more than just that. It's the whole package you get.
Thanks, Ash, so much for your conversation today. It's been really thoughtful and, hopefully thought provoking for everybody. And it really sits well with the sustainability of local values and community connections. They're really big themes, I think, when it comes to sustainability. What's your one simple tip to encourage listeners to support their local business community?
I'm going to go from two sides of things. One, from a consumer point of view, I think just always understand that to have a thriving community, you need to actually invest a little bit into it. And so to actually support those people who are the lifeblood of your community is really important. So I think just always trying to put that first, to think, can I at least bring the local businesses into the conversation? At least give them the opportunity to say, I can do it, but price is going to be double the price, or it's going to be a 3-week wait, or whatever it is. At least invite them into it, because you'll be surprised what local businesses can do for you. And from a business point of view, and this is possibly linked to councils and chambers as well, is just to have a long-term view on things. You can't change things overnight when it comes to shop local. You can't rely just on one product. Our gift cards won't solve everything. Latest, greatest campaign won't solve everything. It's about sort of having lots of different things over a long period of time and having to continually reinforce that message of shop local. And then different environmental things, as we spoke about before about COVID, will change that at certain times. And you can jump on the back of those things when it happens. But you've got to just keep it nice and consistent as well.
Thanks, Ash.
Excellent. Thanks, Marty. Really loved having the chat, and hopefully we can catch up again soon.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Renewy Living podcast. I hope you're feeling more confident about taking a localised and actionable approach to living sustainably. If this episode has inspired you to take simple action, please follow the Renewy Living podcast so you can catch every episode. We'd love it if you could share this episode with your friends. It's a great way to spread the word and help more people join the conversation about living sustainably. You can even send me an email with the episode that really made it for you. Hearing your positive actions for change helps me understand how these stories work within our shared communities. Head over to my website, renewyliving.com.au, for the show notes and blog posts from this episode. I look forward to sharing more stories from the people of Newcastle as we delve into our community's diverse social and environmental practices for positive planetary change from a localised perspective.